Welcome to the Millionaire University Podcast. I'm your host, Brien Gearin, with you today. And on this edition of the MU Pod, I'm joined by my super entrepreneur friend, Nik Hulewsky. He is the co-founder at, get this, guys, the company called Co-Founders. How about that? Right? Slipped it right past us. Nik is a serial entrepreneur who has bought and sold multiple businesses. He's got his hands in a whole lot of pots. He's, at least for me, a resident AI expert. Nik, I could keep going on, but I want to welcome you to the show first.
Brien, stoked to be here. Stoked to be back. Second time, long time. It's gonna be an awesome
Friend of the show.
Friend of the show.
If I were a good podcast host, I'd have had the show number that you were on with us, so I could reference it right here.
Hey,
but here I am, amateur hour. But guys, just go back through our library. We've got a lot of shows, but Nik is one of the awesome, best shows we've had. Check it out. We were last on, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 months ago. So
has it already been that
just
long?
check him out,
It's
Nik
crazy.
Hulewsky.
Yeah, for those who have forgotten me, which is okay. I'm a serial entrepreneur. Bought and sold over a dozen businesses. Healthcare has really been my strong suit. 2 years ago, I sold a medical billing, medical staffing, medical practice management company for about $7 million. And then a year ago, I sold a home health, hospice, home care company that was doing $12 million a year. In top line, I can't disclose what I sold that for because that was sold to a publicly traded company and they keep really tight gag orders. But those are the kind of the two most recent and lots of companies that were rolled up in there. And for the last year, I've been just a kid in a candy shop trying to figure out what I'm going to do next, where I'm going to go. Like I said, bought and sold multiple businesses. There's a next swing in there somewhere. And I've just been talking to lots of business owners trying to figure out how they did it. Most recently, I've been digging into AI because I think it's fascinating and it's going to change everything. So my wife thinks I'm dicking around on YouTube all day, but I think I'm doing research.
And that's all that matters, Nik. Let's be honest.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brien. Thank you.
Just keep the facade up with your wife. It's fine.
I'll give you her number
happy.
and you can tell her that. That'll be fantastic.
All right. I'll text her. I'll make sure I cover it for you.
Sweet.
But also you mentioned your AI, so deep into AI. I don't want to bury the lead here. You're also a very successful podcast host of the Nikonomics podcast. One of my favorite podcasts. Since after meeting you, I tuned into yours and man, it's in my go-to playlist. But
Thanks,
recently you have a handful, like a series going on AI.
Yeah.
And I was just tuning in to those, so I still have to play catch up on those, but that plays perfectly into what we're going to chat about today. We're going to be talking about how you could use AI to buy a business, because as a serial entrepreneur who has bought and sold multiple businesses, that's your jam. But also now your jam is AI, and there's one heck of a way to use it, multiple hecks of ways to use AI to build business, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
All right. So here's what I was trying to say. I'm an idiot, and I don't know about any of this AI stuff. So one day I posted, hey, everybody's talking about, it's the next big thing. It's going to change everything. Agents, your job is going out to a computer. And I was like, the more I've dug into this, the more I see that that's not true. Like, people aren't really using AI. Like, what's happening? So I posted, and I'm like, if anybody's using AI in their business, I would love to see it. And if you're willing to share, I'd love to just screen share so I can record it and look at it later. And I got tons of people who responded to me. I was like shocked by the outreach. And so I've interviewed now over 30 entrepreneurs who are utilizing AI in their business. And it has been freaking mind-blowing. I had a silicon manufacturer who came on and he spun up a chatbot because a huge cost that they have within the facility is their chemists need to contact outside consultants to tell them where they messed up when there's a problem with the compound, because they can't have specialists, fully on staff. And so that costs them, $1 million a year or something ridiculous. So what does he do? He spins up a chatbot, trains it, has it become kind of the chemist expert. And now his head chemist and his team are using that chatbot to identify low-hanging fruit and easy problems. And it's cut his spend in half. Like he's saved probably $500,000 this year just from spinning up that chatbot. And then there are other, like, tons of applications that I've seen used, all the way from, hey, this is how I organize my thoughts. These are the prompts that I use, to this is how I'm building apps, and this is how I've implemented things in my business. It's pretty freaking incredible. And I just think the people who are spending the time to understand these things are going to be way ahead of the game over the next year or two as it gets better and better.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you're clearly one of those guys. You're doing a deep dive on it, and even if you don't consider yourself an expert compared to most of the rest of the world, or myself included, and many of our listeners, I'm sure, you are the expert here. So we're gonna talk about how we can leverage AI to do what you do best, which is buy a business. And full disclosure, I'm going to have plenty of other questions that don't perfectly relate to that in terms of AI and business. So I'm going to, I'll find some rabbit holes for us. Don't worry. But I invite you to send us down some rabbit holes because, man, there's so much that comes with AI that we just don't know about. And those of us who don't spend part of our day doing deep dives and rabbit holes when it comes to AI, we won't know it. So, today I'd love to make sure that if we can give some pointers or some actionable tips or inspiration when it comes to AI and buying a business, we're doing a service to our listeners by putting you ahead of the game and maybe giving you a little bit of an edge to get a business.
I'm telling you right now, because I've had a number of these conversations, if you're listening to this, have your notes app out, a pen and paper. I don't care. If you're driving, just like save this for later. There is a ton of value that you're about to get from this conversation. And that is somebody who doesn't like to promise stuff, but I promise you are going to be taking a ton of notes.
Under promise, over deliver.
Over promise, under deliver is apparently where I'm going.
Whoops.
All right.
All right. Well, let's jump right in, man. You take the wheel here and tell us, what is it? How can you use AI?
I'm going to set the context here because I think most people are still just like, well, what is AI? And this is how I want people to think about it. You've used Google in your life. When you want to know something from Google, you're like, what is the capital of Uganda? Right? You type it into the computer and it spits out an answer. Google's like a librarian. You go to the librarian, you ask it a question, and then it points you in the direction of those resources. Go to this section, these rows, these books, read these authors, and then you do your self-study. AI is like having a PhD level chemist, in the use case that I just said, professor who knows everything about everything that can answer your questions at the drop of a hat. And they're not just a specialist in one area, they're a specialist in probably any area that you can think of. So that changes the game. When you're asking Google, hey, how do I write a good blog post, for example? Or how do I hire somebody for my business? Google's going to spit out a bunch of resources that you can go and read and sift through and kind of take the information and apply it. But if you ask AI that, hey, how do I have a good hiring process? It's going to be very prescriptive. Well, based on the research that has been done, these are the steps, this is how you hire, this is how you reach out, etc. So it's a massive difference in level of compute power between Google and AI. I just want to set that context first and foremost. Second, most people are like, I don't know where to start. What do I use? Do I use Perplexity? Do I use Gemini? Do I use Grok? Do I use ChatGPT? Do I use Claude? Which one of these do I use? And to that, I would answer, just pick one. If you're just getting started, pick one of those, pay the $20 a month so you have either some extra storage or extra tokens, and just replace it with everything that you're currently Googling except for geographic-based questions. If you want to find a restaurant, if you want to know what time the local sports team plays, those types of things, go to Google. Everything else, start going to whatever tool you use. I use ChatGPT to ask those questions. Because most of the time you're asking a question, it's kind of the first layer question. You just want to get to the place where you can get enough information to synthesize it and then come to an answer. These AI tools now they've already done the synthesizing. They're ready to give you an answer. So those would be the first two things I say. This is what these AI tools are. And I don't care which one of them you pick, just pick one and start messing around with it. Fair?
Easy enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
No questions.
Absolutely.
You're just going to let me keep spewing.
I'm gonna let you keep going,
Okay.
but so my mind's wandering down a quick path. You mentioned how how we humans Google now, right? Like it used to be, like you say, you put in your question and it spits out resources. Obviously, many of us, everybody has seen how Google's AI is starting to interject. You answer because I think back in the day, maybe 6 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, you Google something that wasn't necessarily a question. But then over time, people started, myself included, being like, what's the capital of Idaho? And it would give you resources or it'd give you a Wikipedia page.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be in the real quick description. It might not be. You're another quick click away and another paragraph away from getting your answer.
Yeah.
Google simplified that by giving you the AI answer. It's like the capital of Idaho is Boise. Boom. Now you've got your answer quicker. You're happy. You're a happy searcher. You're more likely to come back to Google to search. Google's happy, right?
Yeah.
But this is taking it to a whole nother level because you mentioned, screw going to Google, go to your AI. So that if everyone did that, that would completely change the game.
Here's like this is
search.
a real use case example, right? I'm a business owner and I'm trying to figure out how I hire. Actually, sorry, we're going to go to buying a business, because we'll stay in that lane.
All right.
You're a wantrepreneur and you're trying to figure out, how do I become an entrepreneur? How do I buy a business? That's your question, right? But there's a whole host of things that come with that question. Like, how do I finance it? How much money do I need down? Well, what are multiples on those businesses? What are their profit margins? Are they CapEx heavy, CapEx light? Like, there's a whole host of those things, right? So you first go to Google and you're like, how do I buy a business? And then you start sifting through all of this information. Boop, 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 boop. And you do some self-study. That's the old way. What if I told you though now, Brien, you had the same question, how do I buy a business? But you had a best friend who was not only knowledgeable in this space, they'd bought multiple businesses, they'd sold multiple businesses, they knew the best things to look at and the red flags to see. They were also the most accessible person that you could ever reach out to. They were there 24/7. You could ask them a question and they would respond to you with this, with a synthesis of all of their experience. Which one would you go to? Would you go to Google first, or would you go to your friend?
You go to your friend.
You go to your friend. And then you'd ask your friend, you'd say, hey, how do I buy a business? And they'd be like, oh, that's interesting. Like, what are you looking for? Oh, I don't really know what I'm looking for. Oh, okay, well, you want to kind of narrow down, what are you good at? What are you passionate about? What geography? What size business? How much money do you? They're going to tell you all of these things, right? The AI is your best friend. That is what it does, right? You are going to ask it, how do I buy a business? And then it's going to spit out, it's an interesting question to think about. There's much complexity to the dirt, it's going to go robotic. But if you start then treating it as your best friend and you're like, oh, that's interesting. You said there that I need to buy a business I can afford. How do I decide what I can afford? Oh, great question, Brien. What you can afford is really dependent on the amount of capital that you have to put down on a business and what the bank will lend, combined with what the seller is looking for in a price, right? And so you're doing this back and forth. That does not happen with Google. I don't ask my question like, how do I buy a business? Google spits out the results. And then I go, oh, that's interesting. How do I do X, Y, and Z? I go back to the search and I search it individually again, and it just gives me results again. With AI spitting out this context, it's just like this conversation. I say something that sparks a thought, or I say something that hits home that you didn't really realize because we're humans and we're having this conversation. The AI is giving you a responsive feedback that you can then play off of. So in the beginning of this journey, as you're trying to like find a business, that's where I would start. I would literally just start like a conversation and think of it as a conversation. This is not a computer. I know this is weird, but think of it as your best friend who knows everything about buying a business, and you're just brainstorming with it. And you're just trying to figure out, okay, what kind of business do I want? What is my skill set? How do I finance it? Where do I go? How do I value it? What is an LOI? You're just asking it all of those questions just to get started.
Okay. All right. So step number 1, choose your AI. Doesn't matter which one.
Don't
just
care.
pick one.
Does not.
All right.
Which one do you use?
Doesn't matter. All right. Yeah. Oh, me?
Yeah.
I'll usually go to ChatGPT.
ChatGPT.
But that's just because it was kind of the first on the scene, and that's what I was used to. I haven't even tried the other ones.
There are different use cases for each one of them, but for us, for Neanderthals like us, it doesn't matter. Just freaking go use one, and like you'll figure it out.
Just pick one and go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So step number 1, pick that AI. What's step number 2 here?
Step number 2, after you pick the AI, start having those types of conversations with it. Back to the friend example. If you're asking your friend, hey, how do I buy a business? How is your friend going to answer that question? They're probably going to think about you, Brien. Okay, well, what's Brien good at? How does he handle stress? What is he not good at? Where's his expertise? And because they know you, they're able to give you a tailored response on the kind of the best business for you to buy. You need to educate this AI on who you are. So again, feels weird. Tell it about yourself. Upload your resume. Copy and paste your LinkedIn page. What I've started doing is I put all of my content into my LLM, into the AI. And it's really gotten to know me very well. Like it understands kind of how I think and how I make decisions and what's important to me. And I will literally ask it now, knowing everything you know about me, how would you answer this question? And it'll give me a really good like first draft, right? But in order for the AI to give you good answers, you've got to be giving it also good data. So start telling it about yourself. The second thing that I would do is in all your meetings, as you're like doing this research and talking to people, let's say you set up a Zoom to talk to somebody and pick their brain, or let's say you're talking to a broker or a seller or whoever, get one of these tools, Fireflies, Otter AI, Fathom, whichever the note takers are, have all your meetings recorded and start uploading those to AI, to ChatGPT. I'm just going to say ChatGPT from now on because that's just like the easiest thing to say. Start uploading those to ChatGPT. Because what you have now is the ability to no longer focus when you're in the middle of the conversation on, oh, what notes should I take? Oh, how should I remember this? It's recorded and you can go back and query AI. I have this little pendant that I wear all the time. I'm not wearing it for this because this is already recorded. This little guy records all my conversations. And at the end of the day, I can ask it, who are the people I talked to today? What were the to-dos I said I was going to do? Where do I follow up with X, Y, and Z? It's amazing. It's been a like total unlock for me. But if
it'll synthesize all your conversations throughout the day.
All of them. Yeah. And if I'm in a two-party consent state, like I think Florida is one, California is one, then it'll geofence. And it's like, oh, this person's in Florida. They haven't given their consent to be recorded, but I'm still going to record you, Nick. So I'll at least have my side of the conversation that I can go back to. Right. Unless I ask them specifically, hey, do I have your permission to record? The AI picks up on that, and then all of a sudden we're off to the races. We're fine. It'll record.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that'd be great just with me and my wife. Like, bro, all the stuff I forget that I said that I'm like, bro,
I could jam for an hour on ideas using this thing.
Yeah, like just yesterday, my daughter was all bent out of shape because I told her she had to sit in the back seat of the van while my son got to sit in the captain's chair. And she's like, but he got to sit there on the way to the daycare. And I'm like, no, he didn't. What are you talking about? Get in the bag. And then we get home and my memory flooded back. I'm like, crap. I was like thinking about Tuesday. This is Wednesday. Oh, I'm sorry, honey. You were due to sit in the cat. Like,
you were right.
Just crazy stuff. Yeah, I was like, I felt so bad, man. As a dad, I was like, honey, you were right. I'm sorry. I feel so bad.
Human memory and knowledge is totally fallible. I mean, even when you have eyewitnesses of murders, they miss a lot of things. There's lots of data to support that. So for me, this little pendant is awesome. But I'm telling you as a searcher, if you're looking for a business to buy now, every conversation you have, record it and then ask for a summary. Because you'll be able to go back to that and be like, oh, what did that banker say about the interest rate on the loan? What did they say about how much money I need to put down?
Yeah.
Or you're talking to the seller. It's like, okay, what was the price they said? But they said something weird about a seller note. I can't remember how they said it. Did they say they're willing to carry a seller note or did they say that they were unwilling? In my notes, it says willing. Like you go back, you ask it. It's there. It's documented, right? So it's not that the AI is an agent that's going on my behalf and negotiating for me. We're not there yet. But now all of a sudden, I have a deal team that I've effectively outsourced to my AI that I can go and query and ask questions to. So that would be my second step is like, as you're going through the process of having these conversations, have something that is recording them, be constantly uploading those at the end of the day and asking it to summarize, because the more information that it has, the more you can query, but also the more information it has, the more you can brainstorm with it. The more you can be like, oh, that's interesting. They said they're only willing to sell if it's a $3 million purchase price, but the bank said they're only willing to lend up to $2 million. I don't have $1 million to cover the gap. Hey, ChatGPT, how do you think I could do that? How do you think I could solve this? Well, that's an interesting question. Have you thought about a seller note? Are they willing to stay on? Are they willing to be a consultant for a year? Are they willing to have a forgivable note? You know what I mean? All of a sudden it's brainstorming with you and giving you ideas and then that you can then go off of and be creative about. So it's not just the recall that's the benefit. It's also now it has the context to have a conversation with you about creative solutions to negotiating, financing, structuring, and onboarding that company that you're buying.
Wow. So this is almost functioning as like a business buying coach, if you will, without you having to shell out a lot of cash to an actual human business buying coach.
Yes.
The knowledge is accessible.
Yes. Now, what I will say is that it's trained on just the public knowledge and the public data set. Mm-hmm. So it's read whatever the public articles are. So it's really good, right? But it may not be an expert in textile manufacturing in Dallas or even just the United States. Like it'll have some high level opinions, but it won't be an expert. So it doesn't totally replace a business coach, if you will, or somebody who has that type of expertise. But you could replace it. Let's say that you personally had that expertise. Let's say you personally, Brien, are like, I want to start coaching digital agencies on how to market. It would take some time, and this is the other thing I was going to get into next, is you could write a prompt to the AI and say, hey, look, I'm Brien. I have a digital agency. I get a lot of business owners. I want you to listen to this. This is a prompt, okay? I'm dead serious. The prompt is not, help me launch a digital agency coaching program. Nope. Listen to what I'm about to say. My name is Brien. I have 10 years of experience running a digital agency that's been highly successful. I do about $5 million a year. I'm just guessing. Top line revenue. We have 30 to 40% net margins. And I constantly have people approaching me for advice on how to start, run, scale, grow, and operate a digital agency. I know that I have a ton of experience in my brain, but I don't even know where to start with creating a course or program that would allow me to coach these individuals. You are my thought partner. Please give me 10 questions that I should answer that will help you create an agenda or a template for me to create a coaching program. That's all a prompt. That whole thing was a prompt, right? Like you time me, it was probably 30, 45 seconds. I don't even know how long it was. I blacked out. I just woke up. So like you feed that in, it's going to give you some questions. And then you'll eventually get to the spot where it's like, okay, Brien, these are the things that you need to focus on as a coach. You need to focus on customer acquisition because these people don't know how to acquire customers. You need to focus on pricing. You need to focus on hiring. You need to focus on financial controls, and you need to focus on team building, right? Let's just say those are the 5 things. Cool. Well, now you have an outline for it. All right. Help me create an in-depth course on customer acquisition. You just take the first one, right? It's giving you 5 sort of pillars for you to create your coaching program. You just take the first one. All right. Help me build out the first one. And you just keep going from there. And it's this flywheel. And by the end of it, you've got a real coaching program with your experience. This will take hours. It will take days for you to actually complete this. But again, you've got to give the LLM the information in order for it to create the system that is tailored to you.
And is that essentially, is that what we consider training a GPT or a personal GPT, or is this different from that?
It's very similar.
Okay.
So now we're getting into a whole host of things. These LLM models have like a base level of knowledge. And when I ask it a question, so like my best friend who's a business buying expert, right? He's got all of this knowledge, tons of knowledge. But in order for him to use that knowledge, he's got to have like a real clear understanding of what the actual question is. Not just, hey, how do I buy a business? What I'm really asking is like, hey, how do I, Nick, with all of the things that I have in terms of experience and expertise and things that I like and don't like and cash and capital and risk appetite, how do I buy a business? That's what I'm really asking. So how does he get all that context? He just starts asking me a bunch of questions, right? And that question and answer period is the context that he needs in order to answer it. The LLMs are like my friend. They've got a base level of knowledge, which is great that they can apply, but they need the context in order to give the best answer possible. And so they've got this window of effectively between 100,000 and 1 million tokens, depending on which thing you're using. ChatGPT only has 120,000 token window. That's about 300 pages of a book. So I could feed in 300 pages of a book as context and then start asking it questions based on its base level of knowledge and the context that I've given it. Right? So again, hey, best friend who are a business buyer and expert, here's 300 pages on me and everything that I've ever done and all of my preferences. Can you read it and just give me a tailored response on how I should buy a business or what business I should buy? Cool. He reads it and then he gives me the response. Like, so that's he's the base level, and then I've given him the context and he's now giving me the response. So that the GPTs can be trained to just have a specific context every single time. You don't have to change it every single time. Whereas most of the time on these chats, you've got to like re-educate it. Oh, okay. Well, remember, you are an expert in digital agencies, blah, blah, blah. The GPT that you build is for those repetitive tasks that you do that you don't want to continue to do or utilize AI for. So for example, I've seen business owners build GPTs that just review contracts. And the context that they upload to that GPT is, I'm a business owner, this is my business, this is what I do. What's most important to me in these contracts are the following: indemnifications, term, pricing, whatever else there might be, right? And so you spend all this time educating on who you are, what's most important to you, et cetera. And then you say, anytime I upload a contract, I want you to evaluate it based on that criteria. Go. So now that's set. I don't have to tell it the next time. It's created in there. And so I just upload a contract and then it spits out what I'm interested in knowing. Otherwise, I'd have to do that whole context thing, tell it what's happening, tell it what the contract is and what I'm looking for. And that takes a lot of time. So you can build these GPTs to just be plug and play.
Wow. Okay. So speaking of contracts, can you use the GPT to, I've never personally bought a business, but I imagine there's a lot of paperwork involved, a lot of contracts, a lot of things that, a lot of fine print that could be very easy to overlook, perhaps, if you're a fallible human such as I. Can you use your GPT, and I guess I should say, in what way can you use your GPT to say, hey, here's my 54-page contract for purchasing of XYZ business. Please evaluate and look for, I guess, the top 5 areas I'd be worried about. I don't know what they are off the top of my head, but is that an example of how you can utilize GPTs to help you close on a business?
Yes. But in that example, I would say that's not a GPT. That is just a chat that you're asking. Think of a GPT as like you're creating a specialist in a particular category. So if there's a contract specialist and you tell them this is exactly what I'm looking for, great. Now I upload all my contracts there. I've got a content GPT that helps me identify content pillars for me to write about. You could have a GPT that takes your quotes from a job. You put it in there and you're like, hey, this was the square footage. This was the different items that they want us to mow, they want us to blow, they want us to hedge, they want us to do, twice a year cleanup, whatever. Upload that. And the GPT, based on everything that you have, has your pricing. It has an understanding of your market. We'll spit out an invoice for that person, right? So like the GPT is just, you've created a specialist essentially that has kind of one function. To your question though about could I use it for those other things? What I would say is this. Remember that prompt that I gave, which is like 1 million words long? Okay.
Correct.
The most important thing is first to start playing with these things. The second most important thing is figuring out how to ask the right question. And this is my framework for figuring out how to ask the right question. So the 4C prompt framework, this is my 4 C's. You've got to have clarity, right? Most people are really vague with their prompting. And here's some examples I have. Here's a bad prompt. Write about marketing. Okay. Here's a good prompt. Write a 200-word LinkedIn post introducing a new content marketing strategy for startup founders. Do you see how one's clear on the ask and one's not? Okay. The second C, so that's clarity. The second C is context. So you have to give it an idea or some type of context to draw on so that it can give you the right answer. Here's a bad example of context. Create an email about our product. I don't know what your product is. How's it going to know what your product is? Here, this is good. Create a concise email introducing our CRM software to small business owners, highlighting easy integration and cost savings. The tone should be professional but friendly. It at least gives you some context of what it is. It doesn't give me all the features because obviously you can be better, but that's an example of context. The third one, which is important, constraints. What you don't want is to like leave it totally open-ended. The best use cases for these LLMs is to like be very specific with what they're doing, because then you don't bring in all these outside hallucinations. So bad example of constraints, explain digital marketing to me. Good example of constraints. Explain digital marketing in 3 concise bullet points suitable for non-technical small business owners. That's very constrained. And then the last one is command. So a bad example of a command is, hey, ideas for productivity. A good example is list 5 actionable productivity tips specifically tailored for remote workers. Like I'm being very specific with what I'm asking for. And so when you fill this all in, the template kind of looks like this. Command, a format or output about XYZ topic. It should be fill in your constraints with your context. And then you enter that in, right? So like that's kind of the idea is you've got to have clarity. You have got to have context. You've got to have constraints. And then you've got to have a command, an actual ask for what you're doing. So when you're writing these prompts, it's like, okay, was I clear in my ask? Did I include enough background? Did I set clear limits? Did I use direct instructions? Like those are the questions that you can ask as you're writing these prompts to get you to a place where you're writing good prompts.
Okay. I think that's super easy to do, especially if you're, these seem like the perfect, kind of white page buster, what is that called? Where your brain's kind of stuck. The get started button.
Yes.
It's the hit get start button. It just gets you off the schneid. It gives you frameworks or it gives you an outline, but I think it's really easy to even get in your own head and be like, I don't even know how to ask this specifically. So just take a step back and make it very concise, as if you're talking to a human who's like, I could go a million directions with how do you market yourself, right?
Yeah.
But I can only go in a very specific direction if you tell me, how do I market myself as a XYZ doing XYZ, right? Okay, so that makes way too much sense. So yeah, that one's that one's an easy one. But is there can you get too concise to the point where your GPT is going to be like spitting out like information that is either too deep, or I guess can you reel it back in?
Again, think of it how you would do in a one-on-one human conversation, right? If I ask my
Yeah.
friend and they get like too in the weeds, I just go and I'm like, hey, sorry, I don't want to know about the history of the SBA. I just want to know right now, what are the changes that have happened in the last year? And it's like, oh, yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so in the last year, what's happened? That's it. That's how you rein it back, right? If you've gone too far.
Right. You just reel it back in. That's all.
Yeah,
Okay.
I know it's a
Wow.
weird like shift in the framework, but like
Yeah.
when you start thinking of it that way, you're going to get way better outcomes in your interactions
Yeah.
with it.
Because with AI, it's if it's garbage in, it's going to be garbage out, right? So good comes in, good comes out.
So this does not replace the role of a lawyer in the deal, the role of someone who's doing the underwriting, the role of a quality of earnings. It doesn't replace any of those things. But what it does do is it makes you more prepared, and it helps you know what questions to ask. I have a really good friend of mine who is buying out his partners right now. It's a $500 million business. So it's a big deal. It's a big transaction, and he's buying out his partners. And every meeting, he told me this, he's like, every meeting I show up to, we've got teams of lawyers on each side, and I'm the most prepared person there because I just took what the lawyers sent over and fed it into ChatGPT and said, hey, where could I get screwed? He's like, that was the first question I asked. And then ChatGPT gave him a response like, well, actually, you should be concerned about these areas. But
Wow.
it's to help you get caught up to speed even more in these deals and these transactions, because you don't even know what questions to ask. And as you get down the road, what are you going to do? Hire a $10,000 a month business coach? Probably not. But you are going to hire a $20,000 contract lawyer to write your purchase agreement. You are going to pay $10,000 for a quality of earnings report. You are going to go through a bank. Like those are the things you're going to do, but you still need to be up to speed, and using AI in that capacity just accelerates the whole process.
So what about trust and reliability with AI? Because I feel like, just me personally, in the back of my mind, I have this thing where it's like, man, maybe this is being cynical, but the internet is just a cesspool, right? Like the internet is full of fantastic information, but it's also full of total nonsense, right? So how do I know? How can I trust my AI to know that the answer it's given back to me is really good? Or is it like, are there some parts of this that I wouldn't know any better, that's not really accurate? Or like, maybe, you ask it, like with your example with the lawyer, like it says, maybe you should be worried about this part of it. And then it's like, how do I know I should actually though? Like, do I just trust the GPT blindly, or the AI blindly? What do you say to that?
Yeah. So going back to the example of your friend who's a professional business buyer, how do you know you can trust his information? He's going to give you information. It's based on his experience and his context. And you trust him or her, but ultimately you are the decision maker, and you are taking the advice of all of these people, and you're taking in as many inputs, and you're still making decisions. So back to the example of the librarian and the PhD professor, in order for me to get up to speed on a topic, in the librarian example, I'd have to go and read everything. I'd have to go and I'd have to become kind of an expert. In the example of the PhD professor sitting next to me, I no longer need to be an expert. I have an expert here. They're giving me the information, but I'm still the decision maker. It's just expediting the process of getting me up to speed. So no, AI is not all of a sudden a replacement for you making decisions. It's an advisor. It's, again, just like any other relationship that you have. These things have biases. Remember when Gemini came out and it was giving you President George Washington was black, and you're like, wait, what the heck, right? Because it's human, and it has fallibilities, but it's not all-knowing, all-powerful, omniscient. So I do not treat it that way. I definitely take it as a piece of advice that I then am able to work off of. Now, to your question specifically though, data, I'm a little leery on its ability to like digest data and give me a synthesis. So I'll use it as like a kind of first step. But for qualitative analysis and ideation, it's very good. It's very good. It gives you very good perspective. It gives you very good answers on many things.
What's the future of this functionality with AI look like to you? Now you're an early adopter. AI is still very unknown to the general masses, right? If we're speaking broadly, like they're people like me. I am not an AI expert. I have not spent a lot of my own personal time investigating it. I've dabbled, but I think I'm probably a decent representation of just a normal business owner who has not focused on this. Where do you see it going in the future, whether it's near future or deeper into the future? And what do you think is what's the word I'm looking for? Like the detriment if you don't start adopting it or don't, whether it's educating yourself or working with someone who's educated on it or bringing them into your business, where do you see it going? And what do you see being the deficit if you don't adopt it?
Yeah. You run a digital agency, right?
I sure do.
And what do you guys focus on?
We focus on, we build marketing and general business infrastructure ecosystems for $1 to $10 million home service providers.
Okay. And when did you start that business?
We've been in business 8 years now.
8 years. Was the ROI on digital marketing better or worse than it is today 8 years ago? If somebody spun up a Google business profile or if somebody invested in SEO, how has it changed?
Oh, the ROI is huge right now.
It's huge. Yeah. Because especially because you're AI accelerated.
Right.
The point I'm trying to make here though is when businesses got onto the internet and started listing on Google and we started having network effects of people actually going and searching on Google, the ones that were not on Google were operating at a deficit.
Right.
There's a reason. There's a reason they started going all on Google. It's not just because they want to be cool and have technology. It's because that's where the dollars were. That's where the ad spend was, et cetera. AI, in my opinion, is similar to that in the sense that it's a technology change. It's a step function change in the technology. But it's very different than that in the ability to scale. When Google was getting up and running, we didn't have the internet. It was like internet adoption was getting up and running. And so in order for Google to be utilized, you also needed the infrastructure of the internet to be built. With AI, the rails are there. We already have the rails. So there's not this long tail waiting for people to adopt the underlying technology that will allow us to utilize AI. It's already there. And it's changing at such a fast pace because AI is now using AI to like improve itself, that the gap between the people who have learned it and the people who haven't learned it is going to be so big for a period of time that I don't know if people will be able to recover. I think most people are like, I'll figure it out when it gets there. Oh, agents? Oh, there's an agent? And then you dig into it and you're like, oh, I still have to do kind of everything. I'm going to wait until it gets there. If you're waiting until it gets there, it's going to take time for your agency, your company, your business, whatever, to get caught up. You're going to have to learn, oh, okay, so how does the AI work? Oh, so we need to map our processes? Okay, that makes sense. So I need to identify who's going to be managing this piece of the process? Okay, makes sense. Oh, I need to have this software. Like there's a whole host of things you're going to need in order to actually implement it. And if you're waiting until that point, there are going to be people who are understanding it now. They're documenting their SOPs so that they can feed it into the LLMs and the LLM understands how their business operates. They're getting these softwares integrations already set up. Their CRMs and ChatGPT and OpenAI API calls are already mapped so that when agents come out and it's like, oh, agents actually work. Well, guess what? The companies who figured out the infrastructure, who figured out the SOPs, who figured out who's doing what, they're plug and play. And the rails are already there for them to take advantage of it. They're going to eat your lunch for like a year, at least a year, on the companies that aren't. And what does eat your lunch look like? They'll be able to operate at a higher margin because they won't need as many people. They will be faster and better with responsiveness. They will be faster and better with quality. They will be faster and better with the administrative burden on their back end. And so for this year time, you're going to be having companies that are like, used to be doing 5 to 10% margins, doing probably 30% margins reinvesting all that back into the business to grow the business while you are waiting and getting scaled up. You're like, okay, well, soon I'm going to be able to implement this. And then it's going to be, I don't know, not an even playing field, but everyone's kind of reach a certain level of parity, and it'll be similar to what it is today, where everybody's on Google and they've all got a Google business profile. But those people who were early adopters and figured this stuff out and just understood how it's supposed to be, I mean, they could double the size of their business in a year, triple the size of their business, especially when you consider you don't have to hire more people to do more functions. You can leverage AI to do them. So that's my personal opinion of how this adoption is going to go in the near future.
Yeah, well, and I can wholeheartedly agree with that, because I've seen it in my own business where we adopted, for one function of our business, we adopted an AI model to help us. We use it for management of our Google business profiles for our clients. And almost immediately, it took out like thousands of overhead in my internal costs. It quadrupled our impact for our clients in a matter of months. And we can offer it at an even more affordable rate because my overhead declined. Now it's going to be more value-based, but it was just an incredible shift for me. And like I said before, I dabbled in AI. I learned a little bit about it, but I would still consider myself pretty much a zero. But I hired the people, and the people who developed the program and implemented it. And that's all I needed to know, because it works. It works incredibly well, and we know how to operate it. We know how to train it and continually get it better for what we do with our clients.
Totally.
There's still plenty of areas in my own business where we're going to start adopting more of it. And my partner that's coming aboard with me, he's my expert in that. So like it's even better, where I want to know enough to be dangerous. But if I have someone who's like a trained assassin with AI, like and there's people out there, there's plenty of people out there that are doing that. Like people like you, you're early adopters. There's going to be people who are knowledgeable in this. So I don't know if you agree with me on this. Like if you feel like it's not going to be something that you want to be completely immersed in, there's people out there who you can work with or learn from directly.
I totally agree. Don't outsource this to your IT team. A lot of people are like, oh, our IT team is now our chief AI officers. Like, no, those are different things. You need to have operations married with technical for these AI roles, because you need to understand where you can automate and replace things. Your IT team doesn't understand that. Your IT team is worried about your servers, how much storage you have in the cloud. Is your information protected? Do you have the hardware and software you need in order to run your business? Like those are the things that your IT teams are. No knock on the IT teams. They're fantastic. They don't have time to be focusing on AI. They don't know this stuff. They don't understand necessarily the best use cases. Some of them do. Some of them are concerned with it, but many of them are like, well, wait and see approach. They're not going to be creative in figuring this out. So yes, I totally agree with you. And I'm not saying this like, oh, you got to become an AI expert tomorrow. You just have to start, just so you can understand the concept, so that when it presents itself, you're like, oh, okay, I kind of know what we're supposed to do. Whoop, let's move fast. And just that alone will put you at such an advantage. You don't have to create your own software. You don't have to create a GPT. You don't have to have all these integrations that you're building. Just start by understanding how it works.
Right. Start small and scale it up.
Yeah.
At least do what you can to be at least a half step ahead of your competition.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, man, there's so much more we could get into. I didn't even get a chance to ask you much about AI agents. That maybe it's another episode, but there's so much more that goes into AI, as you know, and you're consistently learning it every day. So you're getting better. But it's like, the Nik AI. Is there going to be a Nik AI that we'll be looking forward to? Where it's just like you're going to be on a beach, down in Turks and Caicos, and I'm going to be interviewing AI Nik.
Some beach. Somewhere.
There you go.
I hope so, man.
I was hoping you were going to sing today.
That's the dream. That's the dream, baby. AI agents, overrated. They're not a thing.
Ooh, hot take. Hot take. I'm going to put you on ESPN.
A caliente.
Yeah. Muy bueno. Okay. AI agents. That's a hot take. They're overrated. Well, we might have to have you back to talk about that if there's an episode in there. But I know you're a busy man. I got to get you moving down the road. I want to make sure, I reiterate to folks that the Nikonomics podcast, that's a great place to check you out.
Yep.
I also buried part of the lead where you're like a mini superstar on Twitter. Heck, maybe you're popping off like Elon on there. I don't know, man. It's
keep going.
I got locked out of my account, so I haven't been on in a minute. So
you got to get back on, dude.
Yeah, I know. Why does Twitter have this weird like backup code that I never created? and then you have to go through like rigmarole with their support to find your code. And I don't
Probably because you're a liberal.
It's a whole thing.
Are you one of them liberals? Is that why you can't get back in? I'm just kidding.
No, I sure ain't. That's the thing that makes it weird.
Dude, yeah, it's a whole thing.
Anyways, so folks, Nik, I want to make sure everybody can reach out to you, check you out, get into your content world, because your stuff just kicks total butt.
Thank you, man.
What's the best way to check you out and get a hold of Nik?
So Nikonomicspod.com is the website. Nikonomics Podcast, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or find me on Twitter, Co-Founders Nik. And my name is spelled different. It's N-I-K. There's no C in it. N-I-K. Yeah. Reach out.
That, guys. N-I-K. There you go. All right. Well, Nik, man, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, it is an absolute pleasure to catch up with you.
Same, man. It's great.
Thanks, buddy.